Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of my Road to a 750 chess ELO. We're starting this episode off with a nice example of an actual Caro-Kann and not just something I've called Caro-Kann that isn't a Caro-Kann. So we'll go for the take variant, where he'll then immediately take back with his knight, and we'll look to try and develop normally. He then takes, offering a trade, so I'll immediately take back with my pawn, slightly upsetting my structure, but I can easily now castle on my left-hand side as and when I want to. He then develops his queen, checking my king, so I'll threaten my queen back. He'll then do a queen trade. Very aggressive play by my opponent. He's pushed his pawn, so I can now get that early castling like I spoke about. He's going to continue to develop, and he has got the better development at this point, but I'm going to push my pawn regardless, opening up more squares for my bishop. He's then going to castle long, and I'm going to keep pushing and try and threaten his bishop again, but he can just take, which I don't think I was anticipating. So okay, back to the drawing board, and I think I'm going to try and pin his knight here to his rook, which he immediately unpins. But I'm going to try and carry on some normal development down the bottom. He's looking to push both rooks into the centre. Again, he is quite an aggressive player. So I'm going to move over to the left like so, and let's continue. But he then plays the move knight to e5, which means that whilst my bishop isn't currently hanging, if I move my knight like I wanted to, my bishop would then be hanging. So I just trade bishops. I know I'm a pawn down, but I do believe I can bring this back. I'll then bring my rook into the centre. I'm not on an open file here, but I'm definitely covering more squares than I was previously. So I think he's looking to do the same. I presume on his next move here, he's going to move his rook either to the left or to the right and try and attack some of my pawns at the back. But regardless, I'm going to try and put some pressure here on his knight. Which is, again, I'm not quite sure why he's backed it up like so, unless he's, again, planning to split them, send one left and one right. But I come out to the left like so, which allows me to target A, his rook, B, his pawn, C, if he takes with his knight, I can then take his bishop, but he just immediately threatens like so. So I'm going to take his pawn at the back, completely unscathed. I'm now nowhere that knight could be taken, and I'm threatening another one of his rooks. He immediately spots this and just moves his rook out of danger, threatening my knight, meaning that whole safe knight thing I said a second ago is completely defunct. So I'll try and move my knight out of the way, but give them a nice centre position. And I think at this point it's quite clear he's trying to force a way down this back rank. He's trying to get to my castle king that has no escape squares. However, I'm going to A, give the king an escape square, and B, put more pressure on him to move his knight. So he moves his knight because he doesn't want it taken, but I decline the bishop trade and push mine out to the right like so. He then moves his knight back, threatening my knight in the middle. I'll sort of allow him to do this, come up and take his pawn. He'll then take my knight, I'll take back, and I'm now a piece up, I think, for the first time in this game. But yeah, it's going all right. He'll then move his bishop out the way, threatening my bishop. I'll check his king and not think that his bishop can just take mine. After just celebrating being a point up, I'm now very much a point down. Great stuff. His king is looking like it's almost stuck on the back rank, so I've just got to find a way to slide. Oh, he's moved his king over. Now his king's definitely stuck on the back rank. If only my rook was on an open file and he could just get to the back, it'd be checkmate. But it's not, but we're going to hope he hasn't spotted it. And if he doesn't move one of his pawns, then it's going to be checkmate on the next go. Sadly, he does spot it. That's a tad annoying. I then played rook to d2, hoping to take some free pawns across the back. But unfortunately, my opponent threatened my bishop immediately. So what I did here was just threaten him straight back. Move it, please. So he does and checks my king. Not ideal. But I'm going to move my king towards his rook. Partly here because I have to. And partly because I'm forcing him now to move his... Yeah, well, it is because I have to. But I was going to say I'm also forcing his rook to move on the next go. Because it's not protected and otherwise my king will just take. But he slides it out of the way and I presume he's going to go after these free pawns at the back. But two can play at taking free pawns. So you know what? Bang, I'll do that. And again, we trade free pawns. Who saw that coming? I'm then going to continue pushing my king up. He goes for another free pawn in the corner. Or what he thought was a free pawn. Thank you. Don't mind if I do. I'll take that and I'll be on my way. We're back in the lead. He then takes another free pawn. So what I'll look to do here is just slide my king back and protect these two pawns. He'll then move exactly back. Well, it feels like we're exactly where we are a few moves ago, other than he's a rook down. So you know what? I'll just take another pawn. I'll give myself a +3. And at this point, I've got quite a strong base. He'll then threaten to take another hanging pawn. But you know what? I'm going to look to promote. And then what I've done here is I've both prevented him from taking my pawn, should I move it forwards one, and I'm threatening his pawn at the very back with a second line of fire other than just my pure castle. But he comes down, he threatens my bishop. So I look to move him out the way, but he looks to chase me around the board. So I say, enough of this, I'm just going to take that pawn. He then also decides to promote, and it's a bit of a race to the end. I am a square ahead, but I do realise he might be in a position here where he can pin me. As in, if I move my pawn on the next go in front of my castle, he can then take my castle as I move, but it wouldn't really make too much sense because I can then immediately take back with my new piece. But we'll see. He's actually more foolish than I thought. He's done this, which initially looks brilliant, right? He's forked my king and my pawn. He can just take my pawn as I have to move my king. But what he hasn't spotted is that my bishop on h2 can also take his rook. And that's exactly what I do. And now we're +8. So I guess he's going to continue pushing and try and promote. But we really should have this game wrapped up. There should be no excuses. For a brief second, I thought that there was checkmate, but obviously he can escape a rank. We really shouldn't have any excuses for losing this one. Check. Take the pawn. Take the other pawn. Try and back him into a corner and checkmate. Thank you very much. Okay, second game. Let's hope to continue that momentum. We're going to again play this London opening. In response, I'm not quite sure what my opponent's doing here with 3 pawns out like that. Is this a move, guys? Like, comment down below, please, if it is. I've never seen it before, but we'll roll with it. And he's now looking to support those pawns, and we'll continue our normal development. He's again checked the king. It seems to be quite popular to do at this level. But we'll just push our pawn, and again, they've lost a move, essentially. But yeah, we'll just look to continue. I was quite cocky at this point, I think, because my opponent didn't really seem to know what they're doing. They threatened my bishop there, but I can just rock it back like so. And I would say I've definitely won the battle of development up to this point. I can then move my knight across to the right, castle, and I'm feeling pretty safe. Like, yes, he's got some pressure on my knight in the centre, but it's on the e5 square like I like. It's backed up by the pawn, it's backed up by the bishop. And yeah, again, he's put a second amount of pressure on it, but I've also got 2 sets of pressure on it. So I'll slide my rook across, try and get that a bit more centralised, and he'll push a pawn. Right, so we'll push back, takes for takes. And what I've done here inadvertently is open up the file for his rook, not my own rook. Not to my smartest doing. But alas, he then blocks that file immediately, and I meant to slide over to A, but my fat fingers slid me over to B. Otherwise, I'd have pinned his knight like so, and on the next move, I could have pushed my pawn on the B file to B4, and it would have all been rosy and well. But no. No. My fat fingers pressed the wrong button, and here I am on the B file. Great move, Joe. They're then going to continue this weird form of development that I haven't seen, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to threaten their rook at the back. They then take with a knight, so I'll take back with a knight, and I'll move the rook out of the way. Not too sure what I was trying to achieve here. I think it might have been a bit of, let's just hope that the opponent makes the sillier move. Talking of which, I'll immediately threaten his queen, to which he immediately moves out the way. Who'd have thunk it, eh? So I'll now try and get in and try and fork his rook and his bishop, / hope that he takes with the queen. But again, he just moves his rook out the way. So now my piece is really only there just to be annoying, because it takes up a lot of squares sort of in their central hub where they want to be. I'll then look to push my pawn and try and upset his structure in the middle. He'll take. I'll then take with a pawn, not the bishop. The reason why is because his knight is currently threatening that square. So if I took with the bishop and then took with the pawn, I'd be left with the pawn. Whereas now if he takes my pawn, I'm still left with a bishop afterwards. And it also frees up the B file for my rook to go marauding down as and when that's necessary. They'll then also look to slide their rook inside. Again, I can't tell you much behind this thought process, but I'll immediately go to threaten it again. Just keeping my opponent's rook pinned to the back. I'll then look to try and upset his pawn structure in the middle again. And we've done that. We'll go takes for takes for takes. And I didn't quite calculate that because I'm now a pawn down. I shall look to reroute my knight. In doing so, targeting his queen, but completely forgetting I've blundered and just hung the knight. because why not? So you know what? It's time for us to get our own queen out, and we'll just slide her over to the left like so. He'll respond in this weird but okay manoeuvre, moving his king across one. So I'll just take this pawn at the back, threatening his queen, but he can't take because it's backed up by my own queen. Surprisingly, my opponent doesn't fancy the trade and moves their queen back, to which I'll just slide my bishop over and try and create a bit of an uncomfortable scenario for my opponent at the back here, looking on my next move to move my queen to c5, forcing a check and forcing him into the back right corner. But what I don't spot is that they can just take my bishop like so, and they have done. Not great, but I'm going to continue anyway, despite losing my bishop. Rest in peace, bishop. So they have to move their king to safety, but they've done it in a way that threatens my bishop. But my bishop was already under threat from their castles, so not too much gained or lost there. I'll just retreat like so, and they'll checkmate me, which I hadn't spotted, because the queen is in a strong position, protected by the bishop. There's nothing I can do. Right, on to the next one. Okay, so this time around we're going to be the white pieces. So we're going to start with our normal sort of London opening and develop. I realised this was my first mistake of the game here, already taking with the pawn, not the queen. I think the queen would have been a much better move here, allowing me to develop and targeting those two diagonal files you see on the other side. Then carry on developing relatively normally, even with an upset pawn structure. And I'll try and emulate what happened a few games ago here, where my knight is just going rampant on their back file. And it started off pretty well. I was able to just take their castle, like so, and then get back in. And then I just try to threaten their other castle where possible. And just be a general bit of a nuisance with my knights. It appears that people at this range aren't really, like, that used to dealing with them. But then got in this bit of a back and forth here over his castle. And this part now sort of encapsulates where I'm not thinking enough. He's now threatening my queen. If I'd have moved to the c file, it wouldn't have looked suspicious. And from there, I then could have gone on my next move to c7 and got checkmate, I think. I think it's checkmate. It's certainly on the road to checkmate. However, I sort of don't think, and first of all, I move over to the b3 file. He then comes in like so. I then think, okay, fine, I can move to c4. It won't look suspicious. It looks like I'm just getting out of the way, which is fine. And I think by happy coincidence here, he moved his knight, but what I didn't realise is my bishop is now blocked to that c7 file, meaning I'm only attacking it with my queen, meaning his king can just take. But I'd already run through in my head that if he blocked it, I should have just taken his knight on the back g8 file. Like, I don't quite know what I was thinking. And then I was down sort of 8 points, and then it was always going to be a battle from here. Like, I tried my best to bring it back, but I realised here, for instance, he's completely trapped my rook in the corner. Like, there's nothing I can do to get out of it. If I take his pawn on b6, he can take me with his bishop. Likewise, if I move back to b4, he can take me with his bishop. If I move to the left, he can take me with his pawn. If I move to the right, he can take me with his pawn. He'd completely fox me. So I just tried to apply pressure to his queen and hope he'd make a mistake, potentially allowing me to take the horse on e5 and threaten his king in a check and then try and get out some sort of way. But it just wasn't happening for me, and I lost my rook. I was then down +10. I still tried to play on for a little bit, but I then lost my rook. I was down 16. I just thought, you know what, I'll call it, I'll resign, save everyone's time here. But no, guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.